Welcome, everyone, to Software Spotlight, your front row seat to the latest innovations in software for small business. I'm Michael Burnswag, your host, and each week we are joined by executives at leading software companies to get an insider's perspective on the emerging technologies, business strategies, and market trends shaping the future. Tune in to stay ahead of the curve on leveraging software to boost productivity and growth in your business. And be sure to visit our website, softwareoasis.com, to access our free weekly software newsletter and sign up for our upcoming software webinar series. Today, we're in for a real treat, something a little bit different on the Software Spotlight. We have the founder of Muddy Robot Games, an independent game development studio, with us today. And he has a passion for creating immersive and engaging gaming experiences. Chris has led his team in developing several critically acclaimed software titles in the gaming space across multiple platforms, blending innovative gameplay mechanics with captivating storytelling. Muddy Robot Games continues to push boundaries and deliver unique gaming adventures for players worldwide. So, with that, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, wonderful. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your development schedule. I know the team over there at Muddy Robots is working hard to pull together some exciting new tech for everyone in the gaming space. And I was hoping you could start out by just giving us a little bit of background on yourself in the gaming industry.
Yeah. Well, I will do a broad view of this. I have over 35 years of experience in media and entertainment, which also includes gaming. Actually, I go all the way back to one of my very first jobs, which was working at a software, et cetera, in one of the local malls here and selling video games. So all
Oh,
of our
fun.
game stops that are of today, actually, back in the days, you had Babbage's and software, et cetera. And then you had EB games, and then it turned into Game Stops. But yeah, I remember standing in the mall, working and selling games, and really getting into that as a medium. But my first choice was to go into movies. And so I talk often about one of my first jobs being at a movie theater, cleaning up popcorn and taking tickets at the door and selling popcorns at the concession, and really falling in love with the process of storytelling. And then as my career evolved and I got more into other forms of media and entertainment, including music and television and video games, again, I saw that there was this great opportunity to take that knowledge and bring it to the corporate world. And so when we started to get into the .com ages and thinking about how we were going to build websites and applications and drive traffic to our businesses, it really was, to me, nothing more than an additional way to tell stories. Websites are basically an entertainment medium. We are trying to create these experiences, attract consumers, meet their demands, tell them stories along the way, and get them to consume our products. And I think that a lot of what I've done in my career around storytelling, whether it was from the movies or whether it was from interactive storytelling in video games or even in music and musical theater, is all about telling stories. I think all of that really came together and allowed me to think about this probably a little differently than I think a lot of companies do think about it. And so I spent the last 7 years of my career at Google. And then while I was at Google, I was helping organizations innovate across all of their digital platforms and processes and procedures. And then I left Google last year and decided, why not get back into gaming once more? And I had some great ideas that I wanted to explore. And so here we are, a new studio, very exciting times, and looking forward to it.
And obviously, with all that's going on in the industry, lots of great talent out there to help push the envelope forward. You know, it's obviously an engaging and immersive experience for, for gamers and for those that are looking from the outside in, wanting to get involved. And at a high level, Muddy Robot Games. Can you give me an idea of when you first founded the company and the vision as to where you're heading in terms of the gaming space?
Yeah, well, we founded in November of last year. So November 2023, because we are in 2024 already.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so it's a fairly new studio, but we've put together a team of industry veterans. So people who are very familiar with the space and what it takes to build great games. And we have already begun developing our first game and some original technologies that are not only going to empower our games, but also going to be available for third party use. So, the way I kind of look at what opportunities are available in gaming is to think about it as not just building games, but building technologies that are going to help others also build games. And I think that kind of correlation is what Muddy Robot is really all about. Muddy stands for the joys of play. It's
Okay.
about thinking about the times when we were children and we used to go out and play in the mud, right? So that's the muddy. And then robot is the innovation, it's the view of the future, it's the opportunity for innovation and technology. And looking at all the ways that technology has advanced currently, how can we apply some of that into gaming spaces? And there's a lot of areas for that I think there are definitely some predictions in terms of what we think new technologies are going to see inside of gaming, as well as probably some new technologies that haven't really been explored yet. And so that balance between the muddy and the robot, or the play and the innovation, is really what's driving what we're working on.
Oh, that's really exciting. And, a lot of other technologies in related spaces. I mean, if you look at Oculus, and obviously they were acquired by Facebook, but at a high level, the team that started Oculus, you know, built more of a platform that was capable of being used by a whole bunch of different, technologies and related fields. And, to this day, I mean, I think if you look at all the different ways in which the original founding team has directed their energies and efforts, and everything from defense to gaming to you name it, I mean, the team there really branched off in a lot of different directions. But I love the idea of Muddy Robot Games, featuring both the experience for the end user and the platform technology for others to build upon and to utilize. So I think that's really a very exciting starting, or shall we say, opening act, I guess, right? A very, very exciting
Yeah.
start. And clearly you've had a ton of experience in the gaming industry, and with your background. So it'll be really exciting to see where things head. Can you give me an idea for people that are listening that may have been wondering, from a software standpoint, what is the role of software in video game development? Can you talk a little bit to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think of gaming as 50% creative and 50% software. If we were to overly simplify it, there is
Sure.
definitely the stories and the characters, the worlds that we have to build. There's an artistic approach to that with characters, models, art, music, right? Sound effects. So we can think of that as all creative. Now, behind the scenes, though, it's still software. You still have to build a product and you have to launch that product. And in most cases, you're trying to create something unique, original, and you have to explore the software side of it in order to accomplish that. Now, there are a lot of platforms that are out there that allow you to basically build games without doing a lot of software programming directly. But if you get into some of the larger franchises and some of the bigger budgets, there's always a software piece behind that. And in some cases, if you look at even, the largest game titles out there, most of it has actually been developed from scratch. They're not using some other types of platform or software engine behind the scenes to help them get there. But if we look at, mobile gaming as an example, pretty much all of that is being done from purely a creative side and using existing engines or existing tools that help accelerate that process. But I think broadly, again, you have to really think about this as there's a creative side to it, and then there's the software side to it. And it's really a balance of both, depending upon what you want to build.
And for all of the gamers out there that might be listening, as far as platforms and the like that you envision launching on initially, do you have an idea of what segment or what platforms you're going to you know get the original or initial Muddy Robot games out there on?
Yeah, I mean, we're using a combination of things. Really, if we kind of, again, take a step back, there's the big players, which would be Unreal and Unity. They're pretty much the two largest engines platforms for developing games on. There's a couple of now open source ones like Godot, which is up and coming, and because it's open source, there's a lot of interest in that. Also, it's a lot cheaper than producing on, say, Unreal or Unity. But what we are doing is not only a combination of using some of those platforms. We're primarily focused right now on Unity, using that for our first game. But what we are building is actually going to be an original platform that is going to cover all of our future games. So we're deep into that development process and going to, do something more original for what we need.
Very nice. And the team behind Muddy Robot Games, can you talk a little bit towards the years of wisdom and experience on the team and what special talents you have that you're excited
Yeah, I
about?
mean, I am blessed to be associated with the names that are on our list. I can't really get into some of those names yet. We are going
Sure.
to
No, I
save that for
I
future
understand.
announcements, which we're very excited to do. But behind the scenes, we've got talent from Apple, Blizzard Entertainment, Electronic Arts, Atari, Sony, and Sony PlayStation, um, Lucasfilm, LucasArts.
So the
Man,
who's who of the industry,
well,
clearly.
we put together our founding team, which is about 10 people. And those 10 people all have 10 plus years of experience in game development. So when we say we've got a rock star solid team of veterans, we definitely do. And it's again, it's really exciting to bring these individuals together to think about how we could potentially do things differently. And I think the common theme that I've heard from all of the people who are not only working on the team, but who I've had conversations with is we just want to do things differently than what the industry has grown into. And
Sure.
we really just want to go and create fun worlds, right? We want to just create games. And I think that the business side of game development has caused a lot of challenges for the industry. And I would like us to kind of reset and get back to that joy of play and the strategic element of innovation. Because if we look at the games of the 80s and 90s, they were all fueled by the simple concept of what if, not how much,
Absolutely.
right? And I think as soon as we got into that mindset of how much I could make off of this, as opposed to what could we build, I think that's where we started to really struggle. So all of our members definitely want to change that strategy and mindset. And so, we're set to go and do it.
No, and I think that's so exciting, and you conjured up memories of my childhood with games like the original Atari games and all of that, which, if you look back at the story of that company, that was, what brought all of those individuals together was just the fun and the joy of creating. And I think once that company, grew to a level that things were no longer fun, it obviously, the rest is history. But I think, the point that you bring up makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think a lot of the reason that people get into gaming, and whether it's on the enjoyment side or on the tech side, is just that, just to create an immersive experience that's so much fun to be part of. So I think that that's really the right reason for doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, if I don't, I don't know how many listeners are out there, or if we think about just software development in general. If I posted a job and I said, I've got a software product that I want to build, and it's, I don't know, we'll call it something simple, but it's an e-commerce store. Okay. Uh, there's probably a handful of people who would take the job because they want a job. They're not going to be interested or passionate about that job. Like, there's thousands of e-commerce platforms out there. What's new, what's different, and really you're just going to go for the job. But if I then turn that and I said, look, I want to build something that no one has ever done before, and it's revolutionary, innovative, and it's going to operate on, this basis and have these types of functions, you're probably going to get a lot more people interested in that job because it's different, right? And yet we see that from a simple daily operational perspective in software development. But yet, again, I think in gaming, there's no different. We want to do something new and unique and interesting. But if
Sure.
I said, look, we're just going to build the same game that has already been done multiple times before, but we're going to skin it with a different storyline, you know, people will take it because it's a job, but people aren't going to be passionate about it. And so I
Yeah,
really want to get that passion back into the process.
and I'd agree with you. I mean, no, it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. You need to wake up every day and love what you're doing. Otherwise you are just simply going through the motions, and
Yeah.
that's not the way to do it. So can you talk to, like, software development in the gaming industry? Some of the unique things about the life cycle, the stages of, pre-production, production, testing. What's different about development in the gaming industry?
So there's, like everything else in software, there's really two approaches, and it depends upon what you're building. So there is a waterfall methodology, which is we're going to go through the process and build something and then launch it. And if we discover bugs or a problem, we might do patches or maintenance fixes along the way. That's your traditional waterfall process. There's really not much different. You're going to design, you're going to build, you're going to iterate, you're going to launch. And then there's an agile methodology. And then the agile methodology is typically on games that are persistent, like persistent world MMO games that are out there with subscription services, and they usually have either bi-weekly, weekly fixes, bi-weekly new release functions, and they operate on your traditional agile methodology with a pipeline and a backlog, and you develop and you launch, right? So from a purely software development and release cycles, there's really no difference. You add into it that instead of, say, like a mobile application that might have some basic UI components, now you're adding in additional characters and creative elements. But textually, you either have text on your mobile app that helps explain services, or you have text in terms of a story, right? You've got the software, you've got the mechanics, you've got the audio, whether it's sound effects, like clicks and beeps as things happen, or you've got full orchestration and scores, right? all you're doing is you're mapping out at what point in time you want to build it and what point in time you need to release it. And so, uh, again, I think high level, there's really not much difference except for that artistic side that you have to consider in terms of the development. I think
Sure.
testing is also one of the challenges. So, if you're testing, say, a financial or banking app, there might be more rigorous testing involved than if you're testing a game. But even now, games have microtransactions. They have ways that you can make payments for, again, either subscriptions or upgrades. So you are still testing those types of elements. Also, some games have account systems, some don't. So it really just depends upon what your feature set is and then what your testing might look like. But again, if you really just boil this down to the pure basics, there's really not much difference.
And at what point does community become important? Because obviously the gaming community is a very tight knit group, and you know, getting feedback and a feedback loop from the actual users is super important. At what point along the development does the community involvement become a big part of the process?
As soon as possible and as often as possible. This is something that I talk about on a regular basis, that your customer base is your only priority. Doesn't matter what business you're in. So you have to recognize that the people who are going to be playing your game have a direct correlation to its success. And that community, as you said, definitely in gaming is extremely strong. And so as you start to build up the game, you should start to build up that community and include them in some form. Sometimes in gaming, we include that player base, that community in, say, alpha testing or beta testing, as opposed to going and just finding, random people that we might find for a traditional app. In this case, you're finding people who like to play certain types of games. You're trying to get them involved, get that feedback loop going. But you really do need to include them as early as possible and definitely as often as you can.
Makes a lot of sense. And obviously, when you're developing any platform, and it sounds like you're doing things from the ground up, a complex software development platform, there's a lot of different intricacies that come into play. But I guess the one that intrigues me the most, obviously, the game is something that will be available in different formats. How do you account for cross-platform in terms of, making a game a core tech that can be distributed across different architectures and platforms and consoles?
So I'll give you the simplified form of an answer for that, and then maybe we can get a little bit more technical. But
Sure.
in the platforms like Unity and Unreal that we've talked about, they actually have export functionality for cross platforms. So it becomes fairly easy. You don't really have to worry about it too much. You just say output to iOS, output to Android, output to PC, press the button, it outputs it. Like,
Sure.
awesome. Really simplifies the process. But in terms of the technologies behind the scenes, really what you're dealing with is what are the technologies that are going to allow collaboration and cross function capabilities? The simplest term, again, in that is APIs, right? So you're going to have APIs and SDKs that are designed specifically to help you support whatever cross functionality you want. So if I have, say, a user account and I have different modes. I want to play on, say, a PlayStation device, and I want to play on my mobile device, and I want to share, that across systems. Even in some of the other technologies like artificial intelligence, that's all being driven by APIs that are baked into your games, and then the games are just calling those APIs to get whatever data and source that they need.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of like real-time performance and the system scaling as you grow the community, what types of core foundational things are you looking at in those areas?
Yeah, that is one of the more challenging areas because we can say that as you scale, you're going to have to scale your infrastructure as well. The good news is, especially with cloud, mostly that's pretty scalable and fairly quickly. So if I need to spin up a new instance of something, I can spin up the cloud and there it is. But I think the more challenging side of that is the unpredictable nature of your game. So you don't want to get into a position where you say, "Hey, we're going to have 1,000, available servers to support this multiplayer game," and then all of a sudden, only 100 players are on there, and you're wasting money. Versus, we say, we only need 2 or 3 servers, and on day 3, you've got tens of thousands of players. What do you do? Obviously you need to kind of try to better understand what that is, have some contingency plans for scale. But if you keep it all in the cloud, you're pretty much going to be covered for that flexibility to scale in real time, as needed. And then you've got to structure the game to be able to support that level of growth, right? So that that if you hit this peak, then add to it. There are some things to consider when you're thinking about um, the viability of games based on the device. So, for example, on a mobile phone, the amount of bandwidth that you have, the amount of graphics that you can produce and be seamless and smooth is going to be a lot lower in standard than, say, a console device or your PC. So if you're saying, hey, we're going to develop a mobile game, you've got to begin to downgrade some of those expectations. You're not going to get the same level on those different platforms. So planning that out and thinking about what your target audience is, what your target platform is, what is the amount of resources that those individual devices can accommodate, and then being able to scale accordingly with that is also a critical part.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, as far as the scope or the size of the segment of the market that you're going to be going after, can you talk a little bit about the segment that you're going to be focused on?
Well, our very first game is going to be a mobile game, and industry analysis basically predicts that the mobile game market will be valued at about $750 billion over the course of the next 5 to 6 years. And that's almost doubled as to where it is today. We're at somewhere around 360, 370 billion just in mobile gaming. So this doesn't include consoles and it doesn't include PC or any other web-based gaming. So if you think about $750 billion in mobile gaming alone, there's a lot of product and opportunity out there. And I think, at least from what I'm considering, it's a great way to kind of enter the market,
Sure.
especially from a funding and sort of launch perspective, because it's also substantially a lot cheaper to build a mobile game. We could argue that it costs more to market on mobile because there's more players out there.
Sure.
But in the long run, it really is a little cheaper than if you were to go and build, say, a large scale PC title. So easier to enter the market, easier to ramp up, and definitely a wide range of opportunity. And if you just think about that $750 billion, if I capture 1% of that $750 billion, then we have enough money to build multiple other titles.
Sure. And at a high level, it allows for more of a margin of error in terms of navigating your entry into the market.
Yep.
I guess the other question, are you doing this as a bootstrap startup, or are you taking on funding, or how are you approaching the dollars and
So we
cents?
are doing it right now as purely bootstrapped. So all of the people who are on my team, again, They are passionate veterans who want to make a difference. That's what we're
Sure.
in this for. We are actively looking for investors. So if there are any investors listening who want to reach out to me, please do. But yeah, we are looking for investors. We're looking for funding. We do believe that getting that funding in is going to help us just accelerate the processing and get us to the next level. But the good news is that the team that is here, we are ready and we are already building. So we have something to show for it, and we have a clear vision, and we just have to make it all work.
So I guess the other question, as far as the philosophy or principles of software development that your team is using as you're getting up and running, can you talk a little bit about that? A little bit about the culture that you're working on, and how all of that comes together?
Yeah. Well, the culture is one of the things that we are defining as being a differentiation for the industry. And so I am looking at this as the culture ultimately is going to be the core of if we're successful or not. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Game ideas, everyone has one. Technology ideas, now everybody has one. Startups and everything else.
Sure.
But the team and the way that we go about this is really going to be critical. And so, as I've said, we want to have fun. That's the muddy, and we want to innovate. That's the robot. And in the process of innovation, we have to be able to take risk. And I think a lot of the publishers in the game industry don't want to take risk. They are scared of risk. They are looking at their bottom line. They are looking at the profits and what they're going to bring in. And if they feel as if they potentially will lose money in that process, they won't do it. And this is why we've become an industry that's doesn't care about innovation anymore. Is because even if we look at the last game awards, which was just in December of last year, every single title that was nominated for best game of the year was a sequel. Now, this just shows you that they are investing in established IPs that are less risky. And so for us, we want to empower our developers to be able to take that risk, to come up with new ideas, to continuously innovate, and to have an open, honest perspective across all levels of the organization. Psychological safety is a key component that I talk about often, which is just come and talk and share your ideas, and you're not going to be ridiculed for whatever it is. And you're going to be empowered to go off and try it, to explore it, to invest our money back into the organization for research and development to explore these ideas. And if it doesn't work, it's a learning exercise. That's how you innovate. You innovate by failure, you innovate by taking risk. And I want developers who are willing to explore and to grow personally in that process. And so that's one huge piece of what we want to build, as well as we're exploring ideas like um, making the entire organization employee owned. Like, yeah, we need to find investors, but why can't the employees reap in the rewards and benefits of what they produce? And so I'm the CEO. Like, I don't need millions and millions of dollars. I want to build great games. So instead of giving myself a bonus of $10 million because we did very well, I'd rather take that $10 million and give it to the 10 employees. Right. And so that employee owned perspective that they are the ones who get to make the decisions, and they are the ones to innovate and take the risk, and they are the ones that get the rewards and benefits of the organization. That's how you make people happy, you make them productive, and we become more successful.
Yeah, and it's very exciting. Some of the greatest innovations come from, you know, small startups, the SMB segment of the market. I mean, 80% of all businesses are small businesses, and that is the most vibrant portion of our economy. We actually had a guest from a company, Knowledge Owl, that was on our recent episode, and they actually took the initiative to bring their company to B Corp status, which provided a lot of different opportunities for employee uh, ownership in the future, and the ability to, you know, run the business for the public good. And a lot of other companies, Patagonia, Ben and Jerry's, a lot of other names that we're familiar with have taken that road, and it's a very interesting concept. But I think for a lot of larger entities, some of the names that you mentioned earlier in the episode, the challenge is, the markets are driving the need for ever increasing demands in terms of profits, and quarter over quarter, month over month, year over year growth, to such a level that some of these things are just not possible. And being able to do things for the pure good of, of the mission, and the the enjoyment of doing what you're doing, and coming in every day, and seeing the excitement in the community, and gamers, and the passion. And I'm sure that every single person that's there at heart is a gamer. So
Yeah.
at a high level, they're building the tech that they'd love to have on their console. So I guess one of the other questions that we had come up as we were taking questions for this episode, as far as the, and this might be getting a little bit geeky, but the tech stack that you guys are using to develop things. I know that you said you're building more of a platform, but is there a specific tech stack that you're using in terms of languages or tools or engines to get you there?
Yeah, it will be a C iterative. So whether it's C plus or C sharp, it's going to be in that language. Obviously, there's going to be some components for AI. So
Sure.
we might have to introduce some, um, Python along the way. We are going to be heavily focused on API development. So, I come from an API world. I speak regularly on the power of APIs. So, building basically a foundation where we can expose everything through an API is really the first and foremost part of it. And then from there, how we piece those together to function, whether it's JavaScript, Python, C, um, that's really going to be kind of the foundational approach to it. And then we'll layer on some elements around AI, and then also, probably have this living in the cloud somewhere, if not multi-cloud, type of setup. But yeah, some of that we're still in the works on to
Sure,
really
sure.
figure
And
out what that
especially,
stack looks like.
yeah, as you're evolving, and as you are bringing together new ideas that haven't been done before, sometimes some of the tools are there and some of the tools are not, and they need to be developed internally, and that's the exciting part of all of it. Um, as far as innovation in your game development process, obviously you spoke to that. But the structure of the team right now, it sounds like it's a very flat organization in terms of keeping everyone heading towards the same goal.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of a small team. I've talked about startups before where it's really easy to find 10 people who completely agree with what you want to do. But as your company starts to grow and you get to that 20, and 30 and 40, 80, it's increasingly harder to maintain that culture and get everybody aligned. But for now, it's awesome because everybody understands what we're working on. There's a clear objective that we are aiming for. And so yeah, we've been able to have our weekly meetings, have weekly touch points, get really ramped up in the processes. You're still going to go through some learning challenges and at any stage of a business. And I think the perspectives that other people bring in, you add somebody to the team and it's like, oh, this is great. I love it. But have you thought about this? Like those are the diversity of perspectives and ideas that you want, and so you have to have the mechanism by which they can explore and share those ideas and opinions. And my way of looking at this is we're never too far down the path to consider something new. So, we've been developing our first title now for 5 months. So you could argue like we already know what we're going to build. It's already done, right? But look, I had somebody come to me just last week and say, "Hey, how about if we do this?" And I'm like, "That's a brilliant idea. Let's do it." And I think again, when we talk about software development and risk and reward, and and timelines, I do think that a lot of time we set some type of date and we say we have to launch this product on this date. Maybe that has to do with funding. Money is running out, so we have to start generating profit. Maybe it has something else, but like you've got to sit there and ask yourself, like, why are you going to launch this if it's not ready? Like, is it okay? Can we wait a month? And if the answer is yes, we can wait a month, then wait the month. You shouldn't just push it out just because you want to push it out. And I see this happen with software startups all over the place. Like, no, the concept of being agile and iterative means like, oh, well, we can launch something at bare minimum and then improve upon it. Sure, I agree with that. Gmail was launched with almost no features that it has today. Gmail went through like a 2-year beta test, type of title. So, the way I look at this is you've got to be able to recognize that as people come on and have ideas and express their opinions and grow the team, that they're all valid ideas. That's the part of taking risk that we really want to get behind.
And are there certain regions of the world where you see gaming, you know, most popular, or is it spread around evenly?
North America and Asia Pacific. The gaming market in Asia Pacific is drastically larger than it is in North America, but most of the money is actually in North America, not in Asia. So yeah, it's worldwide. Like gaming is everywhere, just about everywhere, and we see game developers. Europe is seeing a big influx in game development studios. Uh, LATAM is also seeing a big surgence of game development and gaming activity. Uh, Google actually a couple of years did a big event where they awarded Latin influenced or Latin American startups with big rewards to help them kickstart their programs. So we are seeing some of this start to pan out in other regions, but yeah, it's a global entertainment vehicle that is, again, it's still growing on a daily basis.
And as far as gaming itself, what do you see as some of the higher level trends within the industry?
Well, last week was GDC, which is our Game Developers Conference, which is really about all of the newest and greatest technologies and things that we see basically on the forefront or what's coming out.
Sure.
Um, I've got my personal opinions about what I saw, and then you can kind of deduct what some of the trends are. AI was very heavily touted across GDC this year.
Sure.
There was some interesting areas of 3D development and music sound development. But as I've claimed and what I've seen, why I've started this studio is because I personally don't see the innovation. I personally don't see anything groundbreaking that is really revolutionizing or changing the industry. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who would argue with me on this, and there's probably a lot of people who have new products that would definitely argue with me on this. But there's there's a lot of opportunity for what we could be accomplishing, as opposed to what you believe what you believe is innovative. And I think that's definitely part of the challenge with artificial intelligence. What you're seeing is a lot of companies that is tapping on AI onto their signage as nothing more than a marketing ploy, right? What they're actually doing isn't innovative. What they're doing isn't original or even interesting, or probably isn't something that consumers really care about. But we see that across the board. The number of startups in the AI space over the course of the last 6 months is staggering. And probably 90% of those AI startups are never going to see the, success. They're probably all going to go out of business. We're going to eventually stabilize in our AI consumption. And, generative AI and AI, broadly, is drastically different, and I think again this concept that Gen AI is going to revolutionize what we do, I just don't see it. And I've been in the AI space for over 10 years. So
Yeah, and I think, one of the most important components of innovation is just that, is, small innovative companies like yours, bringing new tech and new ideas and new perspectives to market. And, clearly, at a high level, a lot of the larger, companies within the gaming industry really get most of their tech from, innovative startups. And I think that's really, maybe if nothing else, the most important, um cog in the wheel of innovation in the gaming industry, at a high level. And as far as, some of the trends, I mean, I think you just hit on them. I mean, I think that's the key to where a lot of this is heading. As far as, languages within games, what is the importance of language within games as you're launching a product?
language in terms of spoken word or in terms of programming?
No, in terms of programming. No, I'm sorry. I meant more in terms of, like English versus other languages, or is the spoken word, important within games, or is
Yeah.
it?
So because gaming is interactive and a lot of times it's driven by stories, you do need localization. So if your game is across multiple regions, then you're going to need, whether it's the story itself being localized. And in that localization process, sometimes the story will change based on regions.
Sure.
So that is critical. The the help and tutorials, even if you're trying to teach somebody how to play the game, right? That's got to be clearly understood. There's there's a balance between creating game mechanics that people naturally understand because they've seen it before, right? Versus you're trying to do something new and you have to explain it. And so anytime you explain something, you're going to have languages as part of that experience to better understand the gameplay and the storylines and the characters and and all of that artistic stuff. Um, but there are games out there that have no language in it, right? There's just graphics and sound. So, for example, if I put a chessboard in front of you, most people, and it's international, most people are going to understand the principles of playing chess. They're going to
Sure.
recognize as a chessboard. They're going to recognize what the mechanics of that game is, what the rules are, and they're going to be able to sit down and play it. But if I gave you a brand new game that you have no idea what it is or what it does or how it works or what the functionality is, I've got to be able to explain it to you in some way. And so, yeah, localization across games is a big part of the process.
Yeah, and I think we've seen games become increasingly complex, in terms of, the capabilities and the functions and all of that. A long way from the original asteroids and Pong that we remember of years ago, and probably both of those games, no words are needed. Obviously the
Well, and that's
interactions
part of
are
the
all there.
challenge,
Yeah.
right? Is can I place something in front of you that you can immediately start playing without me explaining what you need to do? And so you can create something new that doesn't require a lot of explanation. For example, you just mentioned like asteroids and Pong. You don't really have to explain that too much, right? You sit down, you start twiddling the joystick and pressing a button, and you're like, "Oh, I get this." Right? Very minimal effort for you to figure out how the game operates. And there are plenty of games out there right now where you can pick it up and immediately start to play and figure it out. And then there is plenty of other games where, heck, I downloaded a game a couple of weeks ago and I started playing and I was like, I mean, I play a lot of games and I couldn't figure it out. Like it took me a while before I really understood what I had to do and how I had to do it to really get into the game, you know. And some people like that. Most people don't.
Yeah, and as far as like people that are playing games, what are the typical age ranges that you see for a lot of the games that you're looking at launching?
Uh 5 to 85.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the demographics for gaming is across the board. And male and female, all age ranges, it's drastic, and so it just depends upon what you want to build, and then you can target those individual demographics based on different types of games. So you could definitely build games more for children. You can build games more geared towards teens. You can build games more, geared towards adults. So uh, definitely a wide range of demographics, and again, a lot of opportunity to go and explore that and develop games. One of the things I keep playing with is, can you build a game that is multi-generational? Can you build a game that, uh, like I have a son who's 16. Can I build a game that we both play because we both like the same, game, or there's different game modes, or there's different ways to explore the game that attracts that multi-generational perspective.
Yeah,
I
so
think
being
too
able to
often we
bridge that gap.
focus, this is our demographic. Let's build a game for that demographic, and not really try to figure out, what's the broader demographic.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. It's a really interesting you know thought to explore further. And as far as individuals that are most individuals playing games in multiplayer environments, or are most people playing games that are just one on one, or what are you saying?
Well, if we look at the top games out there right now, pretty much all of them are multiplayered when we are looking at PC based games or console based games. But when we look at mobile games, most of those games are not multiplayer. Now, we do have some multiplayer mobile games, and that you can play, and there are some very successful ones. I mean, even if you think of a game like Words with Friends, right, where
Sure.
you can actually go and play against somebody. um, but I also, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the scalability and the challenges of scaling in mobile. Multiplayer adds an additional layer of development and resources that you need to accommodate for, which creates this, basically an additional expense, and timing. So I do tend to feel like, you can create really compelling games that are not, multiplayer, just to reduce the cost and keep things siloed. But interesting enough, uh, as I've been talking with investors and talking with different people on the team, pretty much the most common question I'm asked is, "Can we make this multiplayer?" So I think the desire for community and to play with friends and to play with other people is a defining element of a lot of games today, and I do feel that that will continue to grow.
No, and that's really exciting. And obviously, it's a journey as you're launching a new solution and a new platform. So that's really exciting. Do you envision over the course of the first year that you'll have multiple titles, or just an initial title to prove out the platform, or how do you envision things growing?
Well, this year is quickly passing us by. We're already hitting April. Um, so our goal is to launch one title this year, and then a second title, or even the next two titles by next year, if all goes well. So we'll see how it pans out, but we do have a clear path for at least two additional titles in 2025, and then um, our goal right now really is to start building out that technology that is going to help us build. The good news for us is, as we're building out the technologies, we are also building out the titles. So they're one and
Sure.
the same, really, right? But if you build it as a platform, as you alluded to earlier, you can, segregate that platform out and build upon it. So then we can license off those technologies, to third party studios. So really, our core focus is on that technology for this year and next year. The first mobile title, will be nice and easy and get it out to market.
Sure.
And as we continue to build out the other components for the rest of this year and into next year, then we can make a determination in terms of what other games we're going to launch.
No, that's really exciting. And for those that are listening to the podcast that are, early on in their careers and just looking to get into, using their skills in programming and to jump into the gaming industry, what types of, advice do you have for people that are just getting started, and, the types of skills or expertise that you'd suggest they focus on?
So I will say software engineers are always in high demand. Doesn't matter where you work. Like, solid software engineers are, everybody wants them. I would say, though, that you should attempt to try to specialize in what you are specifically developing. So a good example of this would be an audio software engineer, or somebody who understands the coding behind the audio. So this includes things like sound effects and how sound effects are generated in the game, or how music might evolve or adapt as the character is playing. So imagine a scenario where you, as a player, are walking through a forest and the music starts to change and becomes more spooky, right? Or more intense. And then you turn around and you leave the forest. And as you leave the forest and come back to the city, it becomes more vibrant and alive because you're in a city, right? There's software development that has to occur behind the scenes to make that type of transitional music and audio happen, as well as additional areas like language and character voices and, right, anything that deals with audio. There's a software engineer that specializes with that behind the scenes. So if you like audio and you like engineering, those types of roles are everywhere, and they're in high demand. So I would always say, don't just specialize in software, right? Specialize in software and something else, whether it's software in graphics, software in audio, software in voice, software in, commerce. Like, the more you can kind of add an additional layer to your software, that's going to be what the studios are looking for.
No, that's very exciting, and obviously a great point in the right direction. For individuals that are aspiring to become game software developers, are there, like, is there a core set of foundational knowledge that you think is important, or can it be from a variety of different disciplines?
Yeah, languages are going to be critical. So be adaptable, understand C sharp, C++, understand JavaScript, um, get familiar with some of the platforms like Unity or Unreal, because most of the industry is using other platforms, and all of those are going to be based on C, so that's going to help. Python, as we get more into again, like artificial intelligence and the integration of that, any Python experience is going to be helpful. Any of the mobile languages, and definitely some of the newer stuff that is out there that support any mobile development is going to be useful inside of game development as well. So um, really just get familiar with languages. Again, don't just have a specialization in one. Get familiar with two or three or four different languages and be adaptable.
Perfect. No, I really appreciate your joining us on the software spotlight today. Absolutely, a very unique and different angle for our listeners to you know get exposed to the gaming segment of the market. So I appreciate that, and really wish you and your team some great success. Hopefully you remember my name in the future when you guys strike it big. But coming up on our next live episode tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're meeting with Leanne Linsky, and she's actually launching a platform called Plausible, which is actually a online comedy club, and a nice way for people to interact online with different forms of entertainment. So she'll be sharing her tech story and her startup and her background as a comedian, and her interest in launching that solution. So that's coming up tomorrow. Our live stream starts at 3 o'clock. So be sure to bookmark us at Software Oasis on YouTube, and be sure to visit our website, softwareoasis.com, to access our free weekly software newsletter and sign up for our upcoming software webinar series. So, once again, Chris Hood, thank you so much for joining us from Muddy Robot Games today.
Appreciate it so much.